Pleasant day to everyone who are watching. I am Genesis Civilio. Are you all wondering what topic are we going to talk about in today's video? Well, in today's video, together with my colleague, Daniel Bierneza, or you can call him Shiro for short, we are going to talk about Asian literature.
Thank you, Genesis. First, I'm gonna talk about the history of Asian literature. Asia, it is the biggest continent that has a lot of literary works and culture from different Asian countries. It also has a long history composed of variety of diverse ethnic, culture, environment, and society. Colonialization is also a big influence in most of the Asian countries. It leads writers compose their work based on love and freedom for their country. On the other hand, way back before colonialism, most of the literature is composed of oral meaning stories from one generation to another. Basically, storytelling like epic and folklore. Asian literature is really broad, mainly because they have different countries, they have different language, cultures, tradition, belief, and society. Some of the countries are specialized in making novels, prose and poetry, and some are really good at producing dramas. Uh, Although they also have similarities, like their goals in making literary work is to be recognized and to be remembered by the world and the future generations. Here are some Asian literature writers. The first one is Ada Vilandia. He is an Indian national and one of the most famous Asian literature writer. His one of the most famous work is The White Tiger. The second one is B. Feiyu. He is a Chinese national and one of the most famous Asian literature writer. His one of the most famous work is The Three Sisters. And lastly is Haruki Murakami. He is a Japanese national and one of the most famous Asian literature writer. His one of the most famous work is A Wild Sheep in Chase. Now then, Genesis will talk more about Philippine literature.
What is Philippine literature? Philippine literature, which is specifically means literary works written by Filipino authors and creators. And those Philippine literatures are written even before the colonial periods. Those are like our folk tales, legends told by our ancestors, and many more. And during the Spaniard colonization, which influenced us the most because almost half of our literary works during the 19th century and the 21st centuries are influenced by the Spaniards. And the most important genres or the most flourishing genres during that time and today's times are poetry, prose, religious dramas, melodramas, and many more. And the most not and the most famous literary works during that time is the novel written by Jose Rizal, which I know most of you are familiar, which is El Filibusterismo and No Limitangere. Philippine literature is mainly categorized during the colonization period, especially in the Spanish and the American colonization. And during the Spanish colonization, Philippine literary works mainly talks about social truths or truths in the society during those times. And in the early English influenced literature, it is categorized that Filipino literary works are melodrama, uncertain language, and unsubtle emphasis on local colors. And during those times, a certain theme is being expressed. It is called the search of Filipino identity. And this Filipino identity reconciles to the century old Spanish and American influence to our literary works. Two of the most important and significant literary works in the Philippines are called El Filibusterismo and Noli Me Tangere, which both written by our national hero Jose Rizal. In this book, it is talk about a certain man named Crisostomo Ibarra, which is the story. It's all about how abusive Spaniards are. And with this story, it started a revolution that eventually resulted to our freedom that we have today. As you can see, this is one of the most important literary works of the Filipinos. And not only it is good as a novel itself, but it also caused a revolution that eventually give us the freedom that we've ever wanted. And other honorable mentioned authors are Miguel C. Joko and Sionel Jose, and many more. What really is the importance of literature to our country, to our community, and to our world? Well, literature can be a medium of teaching, medium of communication of feelings through prose and poetry. It cultivates our critical thinking, appre- appreciation of literature. It deepens our appreciation to our literatures. And most importantly, I guess, the remembering of our history. Through literature, we can deeply remember our history. But most importantly, today we are going to talk also about the comparison.
The similarities between Asian literature and Philippine literature is simply through authors. Asian literature is written by Asian authors, and Philippine literature is written by Filipino authors, which is also considered as an Asian. The second similarities is the trait in genre, which talks about countries, culture, tradition, belief, and political and colonialism. The third similarities is how they express their freedom and love for country by making literary works with so much effort. That's it.
All in all, with its history that dates back to 1,000 years, it is truly safe to say that Asian literature is one of the key points that pave way to our literary works to be more rich and broad. And with Asian literature, it even help us shape our society today. And together with its variation of styles, by the contribution of variety of cultures by every country in Asia, we as a group are confident to say that without the influence of Asian literature and Philippine literature, most of the world's literary works today would be bland and colorless.
I've been feeling so down, yeah. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why?